What's up, everybody, and welcome to ReelTime for the real everyday movie fan. I'm Ryan Murphy, and today we're giving you a ReelTime rant, which is something that we haven't done for a while, but I'm really into it. I'm really into this idea right here because we're talking about The Force Awakens. Now, the Star Wars sequel trilogy, starting with The Force Awakens, has been a big thing. A lot of people love it, so excited. People are like, oh my gosh, The Last Jedi. And there's always those people who really didn't like The Force Awakens, and I'm definitely in that camp. And I wanted to explain my reasons because I see a lot of reasons out there. There's some definite, like, go-to reasons why The Force Awakens is not a good movie, or why it's less good than people think it is. But for me, I feel like I'm in even more of a minority camp because I actually, and I'll say this: I really consider The Force Awakens to be complete drivel. Like I think it's actually an affront. Like, it's not just a bad movie, it's an affront to good storytelling. Like, it's a threat. Like, it's a dangerous film. It like shows how lazy writing and writers can be and how lazy filmmakers can be and how, just empty and vapid ideas can be and still be made to work and still be made to make a lot of money and sort of pull the wool over people's eyes, as it were. And that's why I'm doing this. I just want to get my thoughts out because we're going to review The Last Jedi. So before we review The Last Jedi, I want to just go in. These are my thoughts, on why the setup to The Last Jedi is not good and why I'm obviously very skeptical about that film being good. And then Josh loves The Force Awakens. So, I mean, he's on the other camp. So after this video, we'll have a video with him. He's going to watch this and he's going to have a rebuttal and we're going to debate it a little bit. But I just find that I find it to be, quite garbage. I'm not going to try and get like hostile about it, but this is my opinion on it. First and foremost, let's talk about the reasons why everyone said, why a lot of people have said that it's a bad movie. What are some of the go-to reasons? Because some of those I agree with, but others, I have other ideas that aren't getting talked about enough. So the reasons I hear a lot of people say are, one, it's a 4 clone. It's a clone of Episode 4. It repeats the same numbers, and that's definitely true. And the other one is that Rey just learns to do everything perfectly, and the thing that really gets people is the lightsaber fight at the end, where she just fights Kylo Ren with no training whatsoever. And I'm not gonna lie, those are points of mine. Those are very salient points. Now, as far as, let's talk first about the story. I want to go into 3 sections: the story, or the story structure, the villains, and how it follows up on the last trilogy. So the first section is the story. Yes, it is a 4 clone, but I don't really mind that in the beginning. Like, when you see the beginning, when she's on this desert planet, and there's a droid who has something, that she needs. Like, she has something that the good guys need, that the bad guys want, in this droid, and she has to get it to a certain place, and it's all sort of the same thing as Episode 4. I don't really mind that much, because I don't mind if you start out similar, right? It's almost like George Lucas kind of did some of that in the prequels, which I didn't mind so much. I didn't mind that aspect of it. And he sort of referred to it as stanzas in a song or a poem, right? It's sort of certain aspects repeat themselves, right? Certain aspects. And if you start off that way, it's kind of like, okay, so every generation of Skywalker, because, she's probably Skywalker, every generation of Skywalker sort of starts out similar to this, and this is sort of and so I really actually didn't even mind the first hour of the film. It's after that when they go after the third Death Star, that to me was one of the absolute biggest atrocities of the film. In fact, before the film came out, I remember seeing the poster, and I always remember there are 3 times in my life where I've had this sinking feeling, like this gut, like just feel my gut drop, like, oh no, there's no way that film can be this bad. There's no way that people can be this ridiculous in making films. I've had that feeling 3 times in my life where I just, felt apocalyptic. One was in 2008, watching Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, when that fridge gets nuked. It was just such a surreal moment. I just couldn't believe that what I was watching, like, there was new lows to which film could sink. The second was just a year later, watching Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen. If you remember, I had seen the first Transformers. I knew how dumb the comedy could get. But if you remember, in Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen, there's a scene where the mother, Shia LaBeouf's mother, eats a pop brownie. And there's like a 2-minute scene in this Transformers movie now that's totally pointless, of this mother running around campus, being high. And that was the second moment, for me. It was Indiana Jones for Transformers 2. And the third moment was seeing the poster for The Force Awakens. When they came out with the poster, and the poster sort of revealed, they showed the new Death Star in the back. And it was like, oh my gosh, the antagonist of this film is going to be a third Death Star. And I just got that sinking feeling. I was like, no, there's no way it can be that. Like, that's just so unbelievably repetitious. They can't be doing that again. And they did. And then I remember J.J. Abrams' comments at that time, like accompanying the poster, were like, yeah, but this is like way more powerful. Like if the Death Star was a pistol, this is a machine gun. And I think Han Solo sums that up best in the movie itself. He's like, okay, so it's big. You know, he actually criticizes it in the film. It's like that's complete garbage. And within the, you know, when you think about it, like, you know, when we've seen these characters, Han Solo and Princess Leia and everybody, they, like, 3 out of the 4 times we've seen them, they've been going up against the Death Star. You know, Episode 4, Episode 6, and Episode 7. Like, literally, Empire is the only movie where they're not going up against a freaking Death Star. It's amazing and ridiculous. And the other thing is that in the first movie, the Death Star was a pretty big deal. You know, it was the plot point of the movie from the beginning. It was, we have to get the plans of the Death Star. We have to evade the Death Star. Princess Leia's captured on the Death Star. We have to escape the Death Star. And then we have to go, you know, that was the focal point, that this massive empire that this little rebellion could not beat had built this massive weapon. Here, we're kind of led to believe that the First Order was kind of small, and I'll get into that later. But we're kind of led to believe the First Order was kind of a small order, and we have these other things going on. The first hour is completely different, it has nothing to do with that, and then like an hour into the film, it's like, and we have a Death Star, and it's bigger and better and way more powerful than anything the Empire could build. And this little, you know, First Order guys built it. It makes no sense. It comes out of nowhere. It has nothing to do with the first hour of the film. It's thrown in there to create an antagonist because an hour into the film they realized they didn't have anything. It's really astonishing, like just in terms of writing and story structure. It's just astonishing how bad an idea that is. And then of course, yes, Rey getting the lightsaber and fighting is completely ridiculous, completely stupid. It buggers up the entire film. It's just, I remember sitting in the theater thinking, this is just stupid. But that's my opinion on the first section, story structure. Third section, the villains. This is where really it's not so much the repetition of the film itself, about how repetitive it is of 4, but how much they're setting up an entire story for an entire trilogy that is repetitive of the entire first trilogy. That's what I don't feel it gets talked about enough. Everyone talks about how the first movie imitates 4. I'm talking about more how this entire trilogy they're setting up is basically just repeating the classic trilogy. Now, if you'll remember, the Empire was defeated at the end of Return of the Jedi, or essentially so. I mean, there's still gonna be battles left to fight, but that was the victory. The Empire was defeated, and the new trilogy like recognizes that the Empire was defeated. There's a new republic. They sort of touch on that a little bit. They don't talk too much about it, but they recognize that the Empire is defeated. So what do they have? Gosh, guys, we really want just to really get the old school fans. You know, we know the prequels, they didn't like them, so we want to like touch all those nostalgia buttons and get people excited. So what do? We have a mini empire. It's we just basically, it's a smaller empire. They're actually imitating the Empire, and we don't really see how big it is, or how big the Republic is, or how much of an influence on the whole galactic stage, you know, the world stage this First Order has. And the reason we don't do that is because the filmmakers don't want to. They don't want to get into that. They know they'll get in trouble because this First Order really should be quashed by this Republic if it's just a small thing. There's reasons why it couldn't be. It's kind of like ISIS. You know, America hasn't just quashed ISIS yet. It's just sort of a small thing growing, you know, but they don't want to touch on that. They want to act like they just want to act like it's the original trilogy. And that's why they have this thing called the Resistance. Now, it's pretty clear that they're just repeating, they're just trying to have imitators of the original trilogy. And it reminds me of J.R.R. Tolkien. J.R.R. Tolkien had started to write a sequel to The Lord of the Rings, and it was about the next generation. It was like, you know, however many years after, and Aragorn's son, and there were people who were imitating Sauron and imitating, you know, the orcs, and and trying to be the new bad guys because they, you know, it's kind of like a cult that had arisen that, you know, worshipped them or wanted to be like them. And he started to write this story, and he realized it's not really worth doing. You know, it's just a thriller. It's not going to be the same as Lord of the Rings. And it's like, that's exactly what they've done here. They've created some wannabe guys imitating the Empire. They're on a smaller scale. They purposely don't reference how they're doing this with the Republic around. And to top it all off, it's not the rebellion, it's the resistance. On this part, to me, I don't know how people don't break out into laughter whenever they say the words "the resistance." Remember the rebellion and that trilogy was over? Well, this is different. It's not the rebellion, it's the resistance. See, it's similar enough, same first two letters of the word, but it's the resistance, not the rebellion. And it's the First Order, not the Empire. It's like that to me kind of blows me away. It's really just kind of it strikes me as bizarre. But the other thing is obviously Kylo Ren. We have to talk about Kylo Ren. This is Darth Vader, or this is Darth Vader Jr. I mean, their whole thought process on this seems to be Darth Vader is one of the greatest villains of all time, if not the greatest screen villain. We want to make a good villain, so I got it. Why don't we make a villain that's like Darth Vader? Hey, you like Darth Vader, right? This guy's like him. He wears a similar mask. He has a similar shtick. He even has the same story. He's a Skywalker who fell from the dark side, who's the head of this new empire. And not only that, but what's the character's arc? What's the character's motivations? He wants to be like Darth Vader. That's like literally his motivations is, I really like Darth Vader. I want to be like him. So I'm a Skywalker. I'm going to turn to the dark side. I'm even going to put a mask that makes me look like Darth Vader because I want to be like him so much. And that to the audience will make me like Darth Vader and make them like me because they liked him. So therefore, if I imitate him enough, I must be a cool villain. And that's literally what it is. I mean, it's sad to me. The laziness of that writing is just bizarre. And every time I see someone at Comic-Con dressed like Kylo Ren, I honestly want to walk up to them and be like, what's the appeal here? What are you celebrating? What are you excited about enough as a fan to make this a character you want to dress up as? If you like Darth Vader, dress up like Darth Vader. This is a character who wants to be Darth Vader. That's not a strong character to me, nor a strong villain. It's literally the appeal for him as a character is to be like Darth Vader, and the appeal to the audience is he's like Darth Vader. And that brings me to maybe the worst part. This is a strong contender for the worst part. This is maybe the most embarrassing. As far as filmmaking and storytelling goes, this is really maybe the most embarrassing thing that the filmmaker should truly be mortified by and embarrassed by and just really, really just disown, and that is Snoke. Guys, not only do we have a new empire, we have a new baby empire, led, partially by a new baby Darth Vader who just wants to imitate Darth Vader. And they have a new Death Star. Not only this, but there's a head, a true leader of this new empire. And he is Dark Lord of the Sith, or whatever you want to call him, Knights of Rant. He is a dark side user. And he is the guy who converted the Skywalker to the dark side. Literally, the head of this new empire who brought the new Skywalker to the dark side to make him the new Darth Vader is the same guy, just like it was before. And he appears ominously in a chair via holograms. And not only all that is this bad guy who seduced a Skywalker to the dark side and made him wear black. What does he look like? What's his physical shtick? He's Palpatine. Even physically, you look at it, it's like, wow, he's the albino scarred guy. That to me, that is like, that's a whole new level. Like that's a brand new ocean flooding of bad writing, of bad storytelling, of laziness. Like new empire, baby Darth Vader, new Death Star, and the guy who's the head of the new empire is also an evil Jedi who's seduced the Skywalker to the dark side, made him look like Darth Vader, and he is freaking Palpatine. Like he is Palpatine. So that to me is that to me is just objectively speaking is some of the worst filmmaking I've ever seen, ever witnessed, some of the worst storytelling I've ever been, had the disprivilege of seeing. And I just don't know how they did it. I just don't know what the thought process is. And this is one thing I don't see get talked about a lot. I don't. I see people talking about, the 4 clone thing. I see people talking about, Rey, being good at everything. But I don't see people talking about this Snoke guy and how it's just so repetitious. And that to me is those to me are some of the objective reasons why this is just crap. It's just repeating the same story to the same characters, to many of the same characters. But there's one other aspect that I wanted to touch on, and that's the disservice to the original trilogy. And this is another true contender for the worst part of the film, and that is the new Jedi Order, or lack thereof. If you remember, Return of the Jedi, there's really 2 victories at the end of that film. There really is. There's the fact that they've defeated the Empire, and Darth Vader, they've redeemed Darth Vader and killed the Emperor. And then there is the fact that the Jedi have returned. It's called Return of the Jedi. Luke he's only one, but he's the new He's the beginning of the new Jedi Order. He's the first of the new Jedi, and that's the hope that we're left with at the end of the film. Like that's the last shot of the film. Boom, we're gonna see the Empire. We're gonna see the Jedi rebuilt. So if we catch up with them 30 years later, that's what I want to see. That's what I'm excited to see. And what happens? He hasn't rebuilt the new Jedi Order. He tried, and then a bunch of his students got killed, and then he just left. He just whisked out and went to a rock to hide. And the Jedi Order is still not built. And there's a new Empire and a new Palpatine and a new Darth Vader, and meanwhile the Empire is still not built. And that, to me, is such a disservice. Not only that, but it's also like, people talk about the title of The Last Jedi. Like, people got really excited when the title was announced. Like, oh, that's a cool title. I felt like the only guy saying, that's a horrendous title. Like, look at if you were to like look at the titles on the shelf. If you had never seen Star Wars, you just look at the titles on the shelves, you would be confused. It's Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi. Well, that's so they return, but then they go out again. That seems repetitious. The Last Jedi. Oh, that's funny. I thought they returned last time. I'm sorry. I don't mean to sound repetitious. It's a disservice. And what's more disturbing than that is why it's done. The motivations behind it. The motivation is so that we can see Rey be the new hope for the Jedi Order. Rey is this young person from a desert planet who's going to be trained to be the first of the new Jedi. I mean, it is still Luke doing the training, so in a sense, Luke is still fulfilling the job that he was supposed to do 30 years ago. He's just doing it 30 years too late. But the focus is definitely on Rey being the first of this new line 30 years later, so that she can rebuild. She can be the first of the new Jedi, and she can defeat the First Order or Empire, and she can defeat this Skywalker who's gone. It's so that it can all the more be a repetition of the first trilogy. Literally, the first trilogy is, we have to get this new hope off this planet, have him join the rebellion or resistance, have him fight the Empire or First Order, and meanwhile, they're our new hope to be trained and be the first of the new Jedi. So that happens, and then everything falls apart. The Jedi aren't rebuilt, and we get to repeat the whole story over again. Isn't that fun?
I got a bad feeling about this.
As far as The Last Jedi goes, I've said before, of course, I wouldn't be surprised if the third film, Episode 9, ends with Kylo Ren saving Rey's life by picking up Snoke and throwing him down a shaft, right? I don't think it's going to go that far, and I don't know what the Last Jedi will have in store. Maybe, I don't know if Kylo Ren's going to have a redemption arc, and it'll be just that much more repetitive. It'll be the Skywalker, turning the other Skywalker back from the dark side. I don't know, but we talked about The Last Jedi and whether or not I'm looking forward to it. Could it be a good film in spite of all? And to me, I sort of view it as a homework assignment. If you can build take this, if you show The Force Awakens and say you can take this, if you can make the sequel to this, make it as good as you can. You get a talented filmmaker, he can make the best possible sequel to The Force Awakens that he could possibly make. That's possible. But given those parameters, given those, what you have to work with, the fact that we are kind of repeating this story, I severely doubt it could be a great film. It can maybe be a good film if the guy knows how to work it well, but I'm pretty skeptical of it being anything really worthwhile. I just think they've written themselves into a corner. This is not a good trilogy. I think it's the worst. One of the worst things you could do for a sequel trilogy. Like if you could throw out 100 ideas for a Star Wars sequel trilogy, this is like maybe the one that would be at the bottom of the heap. It's just terrible to me. And I'm sorry, if you like the film, go see The Last Jedi, enjoy it. But that's definitely my opinion on the film. Josh is going to see this, he's going to have a rebuttal, and we'll talk about it. So thank you very much for watching. Leave your comments in the section below. What did you think of The Force Awakens? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? And are you looking forward to? Please watch Josh. He'll have his own words to say. So until next time, I'm Ryan Murphy, and thank you for keeping it real with ReelTime.